Speaker.
As we resume the sitting, I'll recognize the member for St. Augustine, and you have 20 minutes.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I thank you very much for recognizing me and giving me this opportunity to contribute to this somewhat controversial Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority Bill. This bill's primary purpose or intent is to replace the Board of Inland Revenue and the Custom and Excise Division with a new creature which will be called the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority, and it will be a body corporate and an agent of the state. Let me first commend the leader of opposition and my colleagues who spoke before me for the firm position and constant position we have had on this Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority. And it is a stance that is on the side of the citizens. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I listened to the contribution of the government members. I listened to my colleagues on the opposition bench. And I have also taken into consideration members of the various business chambers in this country. And the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority bill is an admission of failure by this government. It is an admission of the failure of this government to efficiently collect revenue. It is an admission that they have sabotaged themselves. It is an admission that they have no new ideas for generating revenue, and so they seek to clamp down on citizens to improve in terms of tax collection and new taxes. So while they have spoken about increasing the efficiency for business and the increase in revenue collection and prudent management of the state's main revenue collection agency, the Part 2 of the bill provides for the establishment of the TTRA, but it says that it would be responsible for the provision of revenue collection services to statutory and other public bodies. And today the government sought to pat itself on the back on all their revenue collection plans, trying perhaps to convince this Parliament and the nation, but unfortunately not one of them was convincing. Not one of them, every member on the other side really failed to convince either this House or the population, and members opposite spent so much time on their usual blame Kamala, blame the UNC rhetoric, that they missed the boat completely. The member for San Fernando did try a thing and go into some of the theoretical and structural aspects of the bill, but it wasn't even convincing. And other senior members spent time, it seemed as though they really didn't prepare on the bill. It was just a blame Kamala session once again. This is not governance. So we have heard about your revenue collection agenda, how you plan to crack down on citizens, crack down on businesses, but where is your revenue generation agenda? You have sold out so many of the prospects for Trinidad and Tobago. You have made so many bad investments. You have made so many failed plans. And today the government is here because it has also sabotaged itself and sabotaged investor confidence in Trinidad and Tobago. And this, Mr. Speaker, started in the 2015 campaign when the government was seeking so much to blame the UNC that they painted a picture of doom and gloom. And they tried to create a narrative that they inherited doom and gloom, And then they wanted to paint a picture of bright sunny days. But the doom and gloom picture that you painted drove many investors away, and it really kind of brought investor confidence down. And in March of this year, Mr. Deputy Speaker, a central bank report stated that a lack of confidence in the economy has led to instability and uncertainty, and I'm just quoting loosely. So they have moved from chicken licking, the sky is falling, to a point where the sky is really falling on their head, and they have no solution. The minister has further stated that the advent of the TTRA will ensure that revenue collection in this country is approached in a world-class business rather than a corollary to the strictures of the public service. So we understand that there are restrictions in public service. We always hear people complain. But in the haste to remove restrictions and what could be deemed as red tape, the government is in fact removing key factors in the public service administration that protect the citizens of this country, that protect accountability, that insulates the organization from political influence, and that is what we have been saying. They have removed that insulation that allows continuity between the changes in political administrations from one political party taking over governance to another. They have removed the protection of employees from political victimization. They have removed the protection for citizens from citizens and taxpayers from possible political persecution, because this TTRA that is proposed has so much space for political influence. Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Speaker, Standing Order 55(1)B, every opposition member has made that point about political interference over and over and over.
Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Right. So again, member, as mentioned, we have gone down that road many times before we suspended. So again, wrap up that point and you can move on.
That was the end of it. I don't know, the minister was quick to jump up for. Anyway, I continue. I thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the member for Oropuch West who spoke before me, spoke earlier today, mentioned that the Honorable Minister of Finance spoke about the fact that the understaffing, that the current organization is 50% understaffed and so on. And he went in a particular direction, but I want to bring another perspective. And that is that this government is so disconnected from reality that it doesn't even recognize the irony in the minister's statement. It seems as though the minister isn't even aware of the unemployment rate in Trinidad and Tobago, that he isn't even aware of how many well-qualified people, young people with degrees and work experience who are unemployed and underemployed. And it is the same Minister of Finance who is complaining about this organization being 50% understaffed and therefore inefficient, who ordered a freeze in the hiring within the public service. So you are shooting yourself in the foot and then coming to complain to us, complain to the country that you need to form a new organization because this one is inefficient and understaffed. But you know, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if this government or this Minister of Finance, if you are shooting yourself in the foot is one thing, but when you shoot, you are shooting the nation in the foot. You are shooting this, and it is the small man who hurts, it is the small man who bleeds. So while this government is crying on one hand, we are seeing where they are sabotaging themselves on the other. Very quickly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in the schedule attached to the bill, item 44, the TTRA is responsible for tax collection and VAT refund. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the payment of VAT is due at a specific time of the year. The payment of refunds is often delayed for so long. And this is a sore point, and it appears to be, so while the government will have penalties for businesses who do not pay their VAT on time, there's no penalty for businesses or no penalty for the government when they do not pay businesses their refunds on time. And I know the minister in a previous budget offered a bond, but I feel that, this treatment of businesses is a form of dishonesty and robbery. It is really absurd, and it is very hurtful to businesses. So what I see happening out of this is that there is no incentive for businesses to pay their taxes on time. And while the government makes their demands that taxes be paid and be up to date, when it is time for refunds and the refunds are delayed, they complain about people avoiding the system, ducking the system, cheating the system. You have failed to provide an incentive, and this TTRA does not solve the problem. The government has to have the political will and stop the approach of one law for you, one law for the citizen, and one law for the government. One law for the small man and one law for the big man. This sense of injustice is what has citizens angry in this country today. So you complain about people marching, you complain about people burning tires, but you do not see the reality that you are continuing to create a sense of injustice in this country that has citizens angry. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I thank you very much for allowing me to make this short contribution.
I recognize the Minister of Finance.
May I be permitted to go to the...
Yeah, definitely. Honorable members, and for the record, the 20 minutes is the wrapping up period.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. When one analyzes the contributions of honorable members opposite, they came in two types. Rambling incoherence and irrelevancy, that's type 1. And type 2 was, we don't need a revenue authority, you should just fix the public service. The only person who attempted to make a coherent contribution was the member for Princestown, who attempted to give some data with respect to the success or otherwise of revenue authorities around the world. But in his research, he got everything wrong. So that even though there was just one opposition member who spoke to the subject, instead of ranting and raving, that particular member got it all wrong. Let me just read the most recent description of the Canada Revenue Authority, Revenue Agency it is called. And this is the current description. Canadians are receiving better, faster, and higher quality administration. The service delivery of the Canada Revenue Authority has become a model both within the public service and internationally. It is a far more efficient and effective organization than it was as a public service department. It has successfully reduced overheads and produced significant ongoing operational savings. And there is a far more committed and professional workforce and a much stronger management team. But those are just words, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Let me read from an article in the Toronto Star, May 29, 2021, because I noted a lot of the attempts at giving examples opposite were dated. Some were 10 years old, some were 15 years old, some were 20 years old. This particular article in the Toronto Star by Amir Barnea was headlined, "It's time to give more money to the Canada Revenue Agency." But what struck me about the article was that the author went into some detail to indicate the actual, real, tangible performance of the Canadian Revenue Authority, and said that the Parliamentary Budget Office in Canada reported that in 2015, the Canada Revenue Agency added an average of $3.90 in revenue for every additional dollar of funding spent by the Canada Revenue Agency. So that for every dollar spent on staffing and operations by the Canada Revenue Agency in 2015, they added almost $4, 400%. In addition, when they looked further on in the 2015 to 2016 period and 2018 to 2019 period, that increased to $5.70 for every dollar spent on the Canada Revenue Authority. So that is the actual result in Canada, almost a 600% return on investment in the Canada Revenue Authority. But there's another paper I'd like to read from Mr. Deputy Speaker, and that is a publication from the OECD, a very recent publication as well, Mr. Deputy Speaker. 7 case stories on revenue authorities, examples of successful DRM reforms, and the role of international cooperation. It's an OECD paper that was published in July 2015. And they looked at several countries around the world, and they looked at the revenue authorities. And in each case, in Bangladesh, in Bosnia, in Georgia, in Paraguay, in Rwanda, and in Vietnam, there was a more than 100% increase in revenue collection after the establishment of a revenue authority in those countries. But we don't have to go all over the world. We don't have to go to Vietnam, Paraguay, Rwanda, etc., to look for examples of success. We don't have to go to Canada to see the 600% increase in return based on money spent on the Canada Revenue Agency. Let's go to Guyana, right here in the Caribbean, in CARICOM. In Guyana, the data will show you that the taxes collected before the establishment of the Revenue Authority in Guyana were in the region of 151 billion Guyanese dollars in 2016, rising to 171 billion in 2017, 198 billion in 2018, 225 billion in 2019. The growth rate in terms of revenue collection in Guyana after the establishment of its revenue authority, 6% in 2016, 17% in 2017 and 2018, 14% in 2019. These are real live examples. This is not talk. This is not rhetoric. This is not rambling. This is not incoherency. These are facts, Mr. Deputy Speaker. These are facts. And there's a lot of misunderstanding as to the real situation. The members opposite, they were in government from 2010 to 2015, 5 years and 3 months. They couldn't solve the problem of understaffing in the Board of Inland Revenue and in the Customs Department. They couldn't solve it. The NAR government couldn't solve it. The Pandey administration between 1995 and 2001 couldn't fix it. And the reason why all of these countries have successful revenue authorities And the reasons why they have gone in this direction is that it has been well recognized all over the world that the public service strictures that have been handed over during the period of independence in the 50s and the 60s, when former British colonies and colonies of other European powers were given independence, all of the public service strictures that were put in have resulted in many instances in organizations that cannot react to the fast changing pace of technology, cannot react to modern needs and modern demands, cannot deal with recruitment of staff in an efficient manner. All of these countries are aware of this. It seems that only in Trinidad and Tobago, our opposition, in the face of what I have just read out, 200%, 300%, 400% increase in collections, $6 return for every dollar spent on the Canada Revenue Agency. The member for Princestown spent some time trying to make us believe that there was some problem with the Canada Revenue Agency. Far from it, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Far from it, far from it. And I will continue, Mr. Deputy Speaker, appropriately.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that this House do now adjourn to a date to be fixed. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I know in accordance with the standing orders, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Honourable member is recognized at this time. Leader of the House.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I know that the standing orders is very clear, and it states very clearly that the fourth Friday shall be Private Members' Day. I have discussed with my friend opposite, and I give the undertaking that the Private Members' Day will be given in December, and I will be giving my friend an actual date at the earliest opportunity. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I know my friend will now protest, but that he has his job to do. He has his job to do.
Deputy Speaker, I listened to the Leader of Government Business about our Private Members' Day that's supposed to have been on Friday. So she has adjourned a date to be fixed. She has given me the undertaking she will give us that Private Members' Day at another time. But she had also said that at the earliest convenience. So I want to put it on the record. When can that be, by tomorrow or Friday, for the record, Deputy Speaker?
Right, so honourable members, I don't want to be going back and forth, but I'll give the Leader of the House the opportunity just to make a comment on the Chief Whip's request.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have prided myself on being consistent and honest with my friend. I spoke to him and indicated that I will give him that information at the earliest opportunity. My character will not be impugned, Mr. Deputy. And I maintain that that is the position. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Deputy Speaker, one more. I never impute anything against my friend's character. I just want to put that on the record.
Again, as I said, we cannot keep going to the left and to the right. So at this time, Leader of the House, for the records.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I repeat. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that the House do now adjourn to a date to be fixed. And what I said previously with regard to my friend from Pointe-à-Pierre, I want to reiterate without actually saying it again. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is that this House do now adjourn to a date to be fixed. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it. This House now stands adjourned to a date to be fixed.